Hello and welcome to this Wednesday night Niall Fraser show. Tonight on the show we've got the Sandie Peggie story continued. So we've got the political fallout of the Sandie Peggie story, reaching Holyrood, getting kiboshed in Holyrood actually. Then we've got Trump versus Zelensky, the sort of topic of the day. It could be the topic of the next few weeks as well. And we've got a 74-year-old woman arrested for silently praying outside an abortion clinic in Glasgow. So all that and more coming up on the Niall Fraser show. But first, the intro music. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this Wednesday night edition of the Niall Fraser Show. The first segment of the evening will be our Sandie Peggie story. And for that, we've actually got a wee bit of help from the paper. The SNP's cowardice over trans row. Isn't that true for a headline? Isn't it true? So overall, we're going to be talking about the sort of political fallout happening in Holyrood, about the Sandie Peggie story. Those that wish, please don't talk about it. Please don't talk about this story. All those implicated in actually enacting this sort of this legal fiction of self-ID. All those, they're all backing off. You know, the meme of Homer Simpson when he comes out the hedge, but then he enters back, he comes back into the hedge. That's what's happening with the SNP, with the Greens. Well, maybe not so the Greens, they're actually happy about it, but Labour and, Labour seem to be doing the most backtracking. And I mean, the numbers are absolutely fantastic tonight, guys. Over 200 viewers right now as we speak, and we're only 5 minutes into the show. Incredible stuff. So what we'll do, we'll actually read the paper first, and then we've got plenty of videos. I've actually got an article that I unearthed of my own writing. I wrote an article 2 years ago titled "The Inescapable Trap: The Tale of 86 MSPs Caught Between Fiction and Non-Fiction." This whole backtracking mentality. I called it 2 years ago, and we'll read my article from 2 years ago. Another premonition, another Niall Fraser premonition. But first, let's read the paper. Headline, Daily Mail, Scottish Daily Mail, going with SNP's cowardice over trans row. That is the headline. And I'm right to think that this is going to be front page stuff over the next few weeks. As the sort of tribunal ramps up, all this time in between now and the end of the tribunal, or the restarting of the tribunal in July or June, there's just going to be more and more stories about this. So SNP's covered this over the trans row. Ministers accused of evading scrutiny over single-sex spaces after rejecting calls for statement in the wake of NHS nurse tribunal. By Michael Blackley, the Scottish political editor. SNP ministers have been accused of cowardice after dodging scrutiny on their single-sex space shambles. The Scottish Government yesterday rejected calls for an urgent statement to Parliament on how public bodies should act on providing their staff with single-sex toilets and changing rooms. And of course, this has got bigger ramifications. Let's change the banner. Let's change the banner to the Sandie Peggie banner. Give me a second. Where is it? There we are. Sandie Peggie questions dominate Holyrood. Even in not being able to answer a question, they're dominating Holyrood. And the Scottish Tories are kicking up. Holy hell! Which again, and I am due an apology, actually. I am due an apology to one person. And that person is Ash Regan. So last show, I said that the only people who could credibly talk about the Sandie Peggie stuff, credibly criticise the government, are the Scottish Tories. But I am, of course, I am fallible. And we had Ash Regan. Ash Regan was, did she defect from the SNP to Alba? I believe she did. But she had the wherewithal, she had the common sense to see this fiction and what it was going to cause coming a mile away, just like a lot of the, not a lot of people, the other people with functioning brains. So that is my apology. If you're listening, Ash, I am very sorry. I'm sorry to overlook Alba as well. Very sorry. Okay, so Scottish Government yesterday rejected calls to give an urgent statement to bodies, to Parliament on how public bodies should act on providing their staff with single-sex toilets and change rooms. And of course, it's an urgent question, isn't it? Because it's not just NHS Fife that this is affecting. This is NHS in totality. All these other public health boards will have these sort of issues rumbling on in the background, and nobody's really going to know how to deal with it until the sort of conclusion of this Sandie Peggie story. So it would be, if any stories like this are happening in the background that we don't know of yet, it would maybe be of benefit if the Scottish Government was to clarify their position. Anyway, it follows the case of nurse Sandie Peggie, who took NHS Fife to an employment tribunal after claiming that being made to change alongside a transgender doctor was unlawful under the UK-wide Equality Act. Of course, you can't force a woman to change alongside a man. Of course, we're getting to just sheer levels of craziness. But it was crazy when it happened. It's crazy now. And now women are going to have to put up with the implications of it. Ministers came out with an astonishing series of excuses for not addressing MSP's questions, including that Parliament is too busy when it was already sitting until 5:15 p.m. last night, and there was that there were sub judice issues because the Employment Tribunal is still live, and that the request for a statement was only made yesterday and couldn't be provided on the same day. But Tory MSP Niall Fraser, a former turn to page 6. A former solicitor told ministers, "I can entirely understand the government's reluctance to comment on a live criminal case, particularly a criminal case involving a jury which might be swayed by comments made in Parliament. This is not a criminal case. This is a civil case to be determined by a very experienced employment specialist judge. There is no barrier, there is no risk of prejudice from a minister speaking on the broader issue of access to single space rights, other than cowardice." Well said, Niall Fraser. And this excuse that we're going to see in videos later on of Neil Gray, "I'm not going to comment on a live tribunal case." This is like the biggest cop-out there is. They're not going to comment on it because it was them that made this happen. They're not going to comment on it because it's their fault. And of course, they're like, "Oh, we're not going to comment on such a live tribunal case." What a lot of shite. And it is an excuse. And Niall Fraser is absolutely correct. The only thing here to call it is cowardice. At least 6 MSPs had requested to ask topical questions in Scottish Parliament yesterday, but these were not selected by Holyrood's presiding officer, Alison Johnson, who has turned down a request for an urgent question. Now, again, a lot of a lot of fingers are being pointed at Alison Johnson, the presiding officer. Why are they being pointed? As we said in the show on Monday night, this is Scotland's biggest story the now. It's Scotland's biggest story the now because it strikes at the ideological fiction of this transgender ideology and the sort of conflict that it has with the real world. This fiction, this fakery, coming into direct conflict with the harsh realities of working life for women as well. So, it takes me back to the Rutherglen by-election hustings. So the Rutherglen by-election hustings, they didn't release the video of it. And a lot of women won't wish members were there because this, again, it was the hot topic of the day, was this gender ideology stuff. And one woman stood up and she asked a question to my memory. It was, "Do you think that the Gender Recognition Act is misogyny written into law?" And I think I was one of the last ones to answer the question, but I think I answered it the best. And to be honest, it sort of took me off guard. I couldn't really. It's quite hard to understand the question. Like, is the Gender Equality, the Gender Recognition Act, is that misogyny written into law? And what I said, I always speak in like parables and metaphors, but what I said, right, was I didn't think it was misogyny written into law. What I thought it was, again, it's this gender ID stuff, this gender fiction, and fiction is what it is. A person can't change sex; it's impossible. Every cell in your body is sexed. Chromosomes are sexed. Genetic sex, chromosomal sex. We're hardwired, male or female. End of. Can he change over? Can he flip over? Right. But this fiction, this fiction that was written into law, what it's done, I believe, and in my estimation, this and even I spoke about. I remember saying to the crowd, "Have you seen Raiders of the Lost Ark? Have you seen Indiana Jones?" And they're all like, yes. Well, I liken this legislation to the boulder that is running down Indiana Jones. And Indiana Jones is running away from this boulder. And this boulder's being the gender ideology. But what it is this legal fiction. It's this gender ideology, alien transmission that's been sort of permeated right through our society, right across Western cultures. That represents the boulder. And what I said was, I don't think it's misogyny written into law. I think it's the fact that this ball of unreality, this boulder, or this crushing boulder of fiction, what it's doing is it's rumbling over everyone. It's coming for everyone. Indiana Jones can't escape this boulder. But what it has done is the boulder has rolled over women first. And this is what I said, it's men aren't safe from this. But it's women who are facing directly. They're the first people to be rolled over, the first category of society to be crushed by this legal fiction. And I mean, how can you answer a question? But I thought that was quite a good answer. But this is what's happening. This boulder of fiction and unreality that's hurtling towards society. Women are getting crushed first. Women are getting affected first. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it happen. And we're going to read my article that I wrote 2 years ago called Inescapable Trap. So this is the harsh reality of it, is that women are being affected by this fiction first. It's them that has to deal directly with the consequences of men trying to change in their changing room, saying, no, I belong here, when everybody else knows they don't belong. And Sandie Peggie is just standing. I mean, to her credit, Sandie Peggie is standing and saying, no, you're no rolling over me. She's like a roadblock for this boulder. And we need more people to stand up and be roadblocks for this boulder. But Sandie Peggie is just standing up like a bollard, stopping the boulder, rolling over the rest of society. This is what my estimation is. But sorry for speaking in such long-form metaphors, but that's just the way I roll. Anyway, let's read the rest of the paper. And this is the thing, it's not a sub judice. In sub judice, I don't even need to look up the meaning of it. It's like, oh, we can't talk about a case because it's live. Well, the thing is, it's a civil case. Talk about it if you want. And they're hiding behind this Latin term in order not to speak about it because they're such cowards. And we've had this thing turn up time and time again. We've had the Isla Bryson thing, and this is what it's about really for the SNP, isn't it? This is what it's about. They cannot have another Isla Bryson type situation happen to the SNP. Destroyed Nicola Sturgeon. The boulder was pushed back over Nicola Sturgeon. And now, this Sandie Peggie case, it could be pushed back again over John Swinney. And John Swinney has just been an utter embarrassment. And I said the last show, that the only word to really describe this, that this whole thing in its totality is embarrassing. It's embarrassing for NHS Fife. It's embarrassing for the staff in that Victoria Hospital. It's embarrassing for Scottish society to have to go through this rigmarole, to have to go through this nonsense, to have to put up with this shit. And shit is what it is. We all know that men don't belong in the women's changing room. For fuck's sake. And again, I have to apologise to the women who are listening to this again. It's no me that has to put up with this directly. It's no me that has to take these threats of men going into their changing room, into their toilets. It's no me. It's the women that have to put up with it. So once again, I'm sorry if I laugh about it. I mean, I'm laughing at the overarching like nonsense, the rigmarole that it is. I'm not laughing about the consequences of it, because it is certainly not a laughing matter, especially for women. And again, I do believe the boulder, this boulder of unreality, is going over everyone eventually. But it's women that are getting rolled over first. So let's finish this paper off and we'll get to the videos. We'll get talking about how we've actually got Jim Spence's article. We're going to go through him. Jim Spence seems to be, I mean, he seems to be really like producing really, really fantastic journalism as Jim Spence. So we'll read his article just in a minute. Alison Johnson turned down a request for urgent questions, but it was SNP ministers refused to request to give a statement on public service workers and single-sex spaces. Responding to demands, Parliamentary Business Minister Jamie Hepburn blamed the busy schedule. Of course, we're so busy in Holyrood, you know what I mean? They're busy eating shortcake, they're busy sipping their fancy teas and coffees, they're busy talking shit to actually address any issue, isn't it? You know, they're so busy. They get recesses like high school. You know, they get large, huge holidays. Such a total circus. It's like Holyrood is like a daycare centre for the insane. It's so busy, Jamie Hepburn says. It's a busy schedule in the Scottish Parliament, and claimed it's not acceptable to ministers to ask for a statement and take place the same day as the request is made. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. He also said, but you know why it's not acceptable? It's because they need time to prepare. They need to know the question. They need to have their staff write the responses, and they need to be scripted. You know, it's not feasible for a statement, a question to be lodged on the same day and answered on the same day. You know why? Because these people in there, they've not got a brain in their head. They need a script. They need to be, you know, the only thing that, you know, an MSP needs to be able to have is the ability to read. You know, it's such a farce, such a circus, Holyrood. But that's why they can't have it on the same day, because they need it scripted. They need their spads to work on their response. He also said there was an inherent danger of sub-judice, which is a lot of shit. Because of Miss Peggie's ongoing tribunal case, insisted this does relate to civil cases too. SNP won the support of the Greens and MSPs voted to reject a Tory amendment and demanded a ministerial statement on the issue. Miss Johnson said it was long-standing convention for the presiding officer not to give reasons for selection decisions, and added, I consider each question lodged carefully and in line with published criteria. You know, why not break with convention? You know what I mean? Why not break with convention? Pink pillows for Washington. Wow. What time is it over there? Tell me in the comments. You know, why is it that this presiding officer doesn't want to break with convention? I mean, the overwhelming issue here in the public is this. Good evening for the North Sea. Wow, David. I hope you're not getting bobbed up and down. Miss Johnson said a long-standing convention. Scottish Conservative Equality spokesman Tess White said, today is a prime example of how disconnected the Scottish Parliament is from the people and that it's meant to serve. The Sandie Peggie Tribunal has dominated the news for days because it impacts fundamentally on women's rights and safety. Absolutely. Yet, despite the Scottish Conservatives' best efforts, SNP ministers are even being allowed to evade scrutiny. Nicola Sturgeon's reckless gender self-ID policy has clearly become embedded in public institutions, leading to NHS Fife's failure to support the legal right of biological women to access single-sex spaces. The public are astonished and outraged by this. SNP ministers need to be accountable and answerable for the dangerous groupthink they have fostered. Absolutely. Tess White, you know, although I don't think the Tories will fare, well in these elections. It's a shame. It's a shame for the Scottish Tories, isn't it? Thanks for telling me the time over there. You know, it is, when you think of the Scottish Tories in their totality, they've actually been the voice of reason on so many issues. But just by having this name, the Tories, has made them sort of toxic. You know, Boris Johnson done them nae favours. Rishi Sunak done them nae favours. But up here, you know, it's weird. Bobby Vajazlar, good evening from the communist dystopian nightmare stronghold north of Hadrian's Wall. Good evening, Bobby. You seem to be in a bunker like me. In the bunker. In the dystopian nightmare bunker. She added, we are only going to see more witch hunts at the public's expense if we do not get clarity on the Scottish Government's position. In a further development, Scottish Labour yesterday announced a U-turn on its previous support for the Scottish Government's Gender Recognition Scotland Bill, which would have removed the need for medical diagnosis of gender dysphoria to obtain a gender recognition certificate and lowered the minimum age to 16. In the Holyrood Chamber, Scottish Labour Deputy Leader Jackie Baillie said that protection of single-sex spaces based on biological sex is a matter for law, and said that Scottish Government and its agencies are not above the law. Scottish Labour leader Anis Sawa said the Holyrood Sources podcast told the Holyrood Sources podcast, knowing what we know now, we would not have supported the bill. Knowing what we know now. And we'll go into that. We've got the video. Miss Baillie also told the podcast she absolutely supports Miss Peggie. She said, we have consistently said that we would protect single-sex spaces based on men and women, based on biological sex, and NHS Fife didn't do that. At the end of the day, the Equalities Act is very clear about what should have happened in the circumstance. And what I can't get over is neither Neil Gray or John Swinney seem to want to do anything about this. A Scottish Government spokesperson said, the Scottish Government supports the separate and single sex exceptions in the Equality Act 2010, which can allow for trans people to be excluded when this is a proportionate means of achieving a legitimate aim. I mean, listen to the word salad here. Listen to the word salad. Scottish Government spokesperson said, the Scottish Government supports the separate and single-sex exceptions in the Equalities Act 2010, which can allow for trans people to be excluded when this is a proportionate means of achieving a legitimate aim. For God's sake. That's shocking. Word salad over there. You know, they think we're all idiots. So there you have it, guys. The SNP's cowardice over the trans row. We'll get rid of the paper for a moment, and you know, I will consult the notes. We've done the overall political fallout, Labour backtracking. So this is the next thing. So we're going to jump on to the bookmarks. And bookmarks, what a fantastic feature that is on X, isn't it? Fantastic feature. So we'll watch the backtracking. Holyrood Sources, right? We'll get this up. And we'll start sharing this page. Bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. Almost 600 people watching already. This is fantastic. See, I think generally this Sandie Peggie news, people can't believe it. People can't understand it. But here we go. We're going to go into Labour's gigantic U-turn and why they're doing it. And I've even wrote an article 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I wrote an article saying this exact thing. They will all have to backtrack on this. All of them. All of them are going to have to backtrack on this. But it's a positive sign to see Labour backtracking already. They know they're a mistake. They know what they've done. And they must climb out of this hole that they've dug for themselves. And this is the attempt to start digging. At least they're starting to dig, ladies and gentlemen. This is a thing. Will it be enough? Will it be enough with, Labour's election hopes languishing? Think about it in the wider context here. We've got Labour that are just they're cratering in the polls. Keir Starmer is murdering the electoral chances of these Scots Labour MSPs. And they're murdering Anas Sarwar's opportunity to become the next First Minister. That's what's happening here. So in the wider context of things, Grangemouth, Anas Sarwar saying we're promising to save these jobs. They're gone. So, in itself, that will be enough, I think, to scupper his chances to be First Minister. But of course, Keir Starmer's just making things worse south of the border for him. But let's watch the video.
Knowing what you know now, you would have opposed it at the time.
Knowing what we know now, we would not have supported the bill.
Right, yeah, okay.
I suppose my first question here is really, do you support Nurse Sandie Peggie?
I absolutely do. I think we have consistently said that we would protect single-sex spaces based on men and women, based on biological sex, and NHS 5 didn't do that. Now, at the end of the day, I'm very clear. The Equality Act is very clear about what should have happened in this circumstance. And what I can...
Let's just pause it for a second. It doesn't matter what it doesn't matter really what the Equalities Act says. Does it matter? We all know in our heart of hearts, with anyone with a functioning brain can understand that we need single-sex spaces. One for women's sports. We need male and female toilets. And we can't have any interplay between the two. Come on, we don't need any sort of intellectual responses to this. This is the thing. It makes me actually sick. I'm a very simple person, and it's my sort of I was going to say a raison d'etre there, but it's my my sort of philosophy that if you can't explain something simply, then you can't explain it. And this needs to appear intellectual. It comes off as just being stupid. I'm sorry, Jackie.
Can't get over is neither Neil Gray nor John Swinney seem to want to do anything about this. And my bottom line is the NHS should be about treating patients. That's the only focus that they should have. And I think this is incredible that what we are gripped by as a nation isn't the deficit that NHS 5 is facing, isn't the kind of waiting times at their A&E, but is somebody feeling uncomfortable because a trans doctor used their space.
Yeah. I suppose then my next question, based on what you've just said, is it's really very easy, is it not, to draw the line between your support for Nicola Sturgeon's gender recognition reform bill and this exact situation.
It's correct. This journalist is absolutely correct. It's so easy to draw the line between their support of this fiction and this exact occurrence that anyone could have said, anyone could have foreseen. He's got them by the balls.
So, Carl, we've been really open about this already. Is that looking back and reflecting on the process of the GRR bill, and this is not new. I've said this several times before. Is I think looking back, the deep regret that we have is that actually we didn't push harder on the amendments that we.
The thing is, it's got fuck all to do with the amendments, Anis. You should never have supported it in its totality. It's got nothing to do with the amendments. It really doesn't. You know, we're pushing for amendments, not scrap it. And in fact, go one further than that. Go back to 2004 and scrap the Gender Recognition Act altogether. That's what people want. That's what society needs. It doesn't matter about the amendments. Nobody could give a toss about the amendments. It's really about just killing it off. Nobody cares about the amendments, Hannes, really.
It had as conditions for supporting the bill. And we took at face value the Scottish Government when they on the record said that nothing in the legislation would negatively interact with the Equality Act, that they would respect single-sex spaces based on biological sex. But also, third, remember, the GRR Act has not actually been enacted because of the negative interaction with the Equality Act, but this is still happening right now in Scotland. And the reason why it's happening, actually...
You know, they're saying that there's some what he's saying here. There seems to be like an interplay between this Gender Recognition Act and the Equality Act, because you know it's like square peg round hole, can't fit. They can't fit together. They're sort of intrinsically opposite, actually. You know, and of course they're not going to fit together. But you know, it's just they'll hide behind all these, you know, the Equality Act, you know, the amendments. We should have listened, but really, it comes down to pure, unadulterated common sense, and he has none.
I think there's an element of organisational capture, and I think there is a bit of overreach from government.
I mean, I had to point it out as well at the time. You know, I tweeted this and says organisational capture. Are you serious? His party was captured by this trans ideology. Not so much as the Greens, not so much as the SNP, but they were captured. You know, it's just so sickening to say that, we've been captured. Or there was an element of organisational capture, of course, including themselves.
In these public places, like in the NHS, that because of the indication, because of the signal that was sent from the Scottish Parliament on this legislation,
there is an element of organisational
they don't know
capture.
what they're doing.
So there's an element of organisational capture. But the key point here, it goes back to what Jackie said right at the start, is throughout and now, and this will always be the case, we will support single-sex spaces based on biological sex. And that is spaces and services, crucially NHS services as well. And I think where there's a frustration is...
I mean, one of the worst ones was the Edinburgh Rape Crisis Centre. If you can cast your mind back, and we're talking about single-sex spaces, single-sex provisions and all that stuff, you know. The Edinburgh Rape Crisis Centre. What happened there? We're talking about organisational capture. What did they do? They put their head, the head of Edinburgh Rape Crisis Centre, they made it a man pretending to be a woman, no less. I mean, it was Mridwa Wadwa, some name like that. Some man cosplaying as a woman, and they allowed him to be the head of Edinburgh Rape Crisis Centre. You know, the last thing that a woman wants when she's going through such trauma is then to be confronted by a man. And a man pretended to be a woman at that. I mean, this Gender Recognition Act has had so many things happen. And it will continue to have so many things happen. We're seeing it playing out in the media. You know, a few weeks ago, we're talking about the Tranny and the Beast story, where we've got these this trans prisoner, you know, a man pretending to be a woman again in a women's prison. Mardibum. Thanks for joining us, Mardibum. The Labour Party helped to capture organisations. I know, with the upside down face there. Love it. Absolutely. They're so captured. Now, let's watch the end of this. Well, we'll try to get to the end of this without pausing that again.
You know, this isn't just about a government issuing guidance and then a health board choosing to either follow a guidance or not follow a guidance or interpret a guidance. This is about following the law.
The actual law.
And
yeah.
the Equality Act is very clear. So this actually undermines the argument which is around how do we challenge transphobia and how do we make sure we are also challenging misogyny and sexism.
I'm trying to get through this without pausing. I'm trying. Honestly, I'm getting, talk about triggered. Well, we'll just get through it.
At the same time, because there's a failure to respect the Equality Act and there is not robust action from government. Government actually were notified about this and didn't take the meaningful action. So we've got to, if we are going to stop falling into divisive culture war politics, if we are going to make sure we're making progress as a nation, then we've got to say quite clearly, we support single-sex spaces based on biological sex. We respect the Equality Act. So as I've already said, like we should have been much tighter in terms of the conditionality in our support based on our amendments.
Because it was a whip vote.
Our amendments.
So there we go. We're getting to the heart of the issue here. I think that's Andy McIver there asking the question. Would you, if you could go back, if you could turn the time back, would you support the bill? He whipped all his members into voting for it, despite the amendments not being allowed.
Were not supported. We believed them at face value when they said that, and they actually said on the record, if people go back and look at this, is the reason why this does not need to be put on the face of the bill, either the single-sex basis based on biological sex or the Equality Act amendment, was they said because the transcript of the debate is clear, that will give the legal protections that are required rather than actually putting them in the face of the bill. That proved not to be the case when it went to the court, and it did negatively interact with the Equality Act, and we believe in the primacy of the Equality Act. That's the argument.
So if you'd known what you know now, you would have opposed it at the time.
Knowing what we know now, we would not have supported the bill.
Right.
Yeah.
There we go. It took 4 minutes to get that out. 4 minutes to get it out. Let's take this down now, and let's get this image up, and let's burn this image into everyone's brains now. And we've got where is the image? Here we go. There's the image, right? We'll burn that into your brains. We've got almost 700 people watching. Thank you very much for tuning in. So when we think about this, so when I wrote this article 2 years ago, I was thinking about this very trap. If you've seen The Dark Knight Rises, the one with Bane, this is what come to my mind when I was thinking of this article. And this is what came to my mind when all these MSPs, 86 of them, voted for this gender recognition stuff, this gender farce. Because all the people that voted for this are now at the bottom of Bane's prison. Do you understand the metaphor here? They're all at the bottom. And now Anis Sarwar is going to try to make his way out by saying they're starting to backtrack. This is what they're doing. I'm not sure if Jackie Bailey's going to be able to make the climb, if I'm honest. But, is it too late to make it out? And this is what we're going to go on to. And we'll share this tab. We'll share this one. We'll get that done. And we'll get this up. So I wrote this. You'll see the date there. 24th of Jan, 2023. The Inescapable Trap. A tale of 86 MSPs caught between fiction and non-fiction. Okay, it's got 2 likes on it. Oh my God. It's got 2 likes. Anyway, they say a butterfly flapping its wings is enough to cause a hurricane or typhoon in another place, such as the interconnectivity of our world. Well, if that's true for a butterfly, what would the world's biggest bear trap, extending from John O'Groats to Dumfries, snapping shut, create on the opposite end of the world? What would the sound of 86 MSPs falling into the world's deepest trap, a trap so deep it touches the roots of the earth, falling between the folds of reality? What would that cause to happen on the opposite side of the world? A cataclysm, a volcano, a singularity. I do like to talk in metaphors, ladies and gentlemen. Approving the GRR bill itself was the trap. It was the trap. And these 86 who were foolish enough to put their name to it, a now very sad group of people, are in political freefall and will continue to be for eternity. Can't believe I wrote this 2 years ago. So how does this bill tear at reality? And how are these MSPs trapped, as to qualify what I'm saying and explain the rationale, so to speak, on the reality of the situation? The human race, like the rest of the plant and animal kingdom, come in two forms, male and female. Noah filled his ark 2 by 2. I keep searching my mind for the life of me, but I don't recall there being a separate ark for non-binary animals. My point is that if humanity was wiped out by a cataclysm and all knowledge was lost, we would again return to what our eyes, ears, instincts, and intellect are telling us. Simply by observing nature, we would again observe fixed male and female counterparts. The idea that we can switch genders or sex is a new one at odds with nature. And I like to use examples to drive home the point. So here is a perfect one from just last week. I was listening to an interview on Talk TV where Julie Hartley-Brewer was interviewing a young man called Innes Buns. So if you don't know who Innes Buns is, Innes Buns runs this podcast, this very, very low viewership podcast. And you think, I thought that he was affiliated with the Scottish Parliament in some way because he was getting these big guests. He was getting Lorna Slater. He was getting, he was getting these MSPs as guests, and yet he was getting 100 views. How is this? So I was listening to the Talk TV show, interacting with Innes Buns, and something extraordinary happened around the 1 minute 50 mark. That JHB statement of fact that nobody is born in the wrong body because you're either born male or female. This simple statement of biological truth, which Innes Buns initially nods along with upon hearing, but then gleefully attempts to correct JHB, which simply cannot be done in this case. So we'll watch it, actually. We'll see.
Not allowing them in the women's prisons would help.
Well, you're not letting me speak. You're not letting me speak at all.
I think the government in the UK did the right thing blocking this law. It's a law that shouldn't be in place in Scotland, let alone have any impact over the border into England and Wales. This is about British equalities legislation. That is in the purview of the UK Westminster government, not of the Scottish government in Holyrood, in which case, why is this stoking a culture war when the government is simply just enacting the devolution settlement, which was already in place?
Well, let's be clear who we're talking about, first of all, Julia, and we're talking about a group of people that have to go through needless medical processes which induce a significant amount of emotional strain and mental turmoil in an era where we're looking after mental health.
I was going to say, are you talking about Scottish MPs or are you talking about trans people?
I'm talking about the trans community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to supplement that point, I think it's twofold. Well, first and foremost, I'm a sufferer of ME, which is an invisible disability, and I know a thing or two about mental toil and emotional disruption when it comes to things like misdiagnosis and unnecessary lengthy periods of time where you're trying to figure out what's wrong with you and you're having GPs telling you stop being ridiculous. It's probably in your own head.
Let's not get started on this. You say
it.
this is young people currently having to undergo, you say, needless medical processes. If someone says that they believe they are born in the wrong body, that is what used to be called, you have a medical diagnosis of something called gender dysphoria, because no one is born in the wrong body. You're born a man, you're born a woman. A tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of people are born non-binary. That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about trans. Someone believing they're born... It's a different thing.
Sorry to interrupt you, Julia, but it's interesting that you're citing biological facts from a widely discredited metaphysical view of the human body. We know that the human body isn't just our physical organs. We know that we have a complex relationship with our mental phenomena. You study philosophy. Think back to your metaphysics lessons when you were learning.
I mean, this guy.
about this. We know it's
Innes,
far more
there is
complex
there
than
is nothing controversial for 95% of people in this country, but I would think 99% if they really had to be pushed on it, about whether or not you're being male or female is a biological fact and is a physical fact. So people are born what they are and they remain that for their whole life. You can cut things off, you can do other things, you can take as many drugs as you want. You will remain biologically what you are from the day you were born. You're not assigned sex. Your sex is what you are born and what you are created as.
And
Okay,
as I said, you're
right, okay,
citing
it's
biological
not-
facts based on a
that's-
discredited.
It's not.
How is it discredited? This is the thing. And we'll get past this, but I mean, this is the sort of mental illness that has been put across the Scottish, because he's a young guy, this Innisburns, right? And I'm not going to bash him too hard because he's another victim. Anyone that thinks this is another victim. Anyone that has his point of view here, that this biological sex, that there's only two, is somehow discredited science, is in fact a victim. They're a victim of this trans propaganda, this trans ideology propaganda. You know, they're a victim as much as the people who end up lopping off their genitals. He's as much a victim as they are. And it's sad to see that people are getting caught up in this delusion. But this was back, 2 years ago. First off, I think it was very irresponsible to allow such obvious and provable falsehoods allowed to be spread on national radio show. This is where reality and fiction split. GHB has their head in their hands the same way I did, because this is simple stuff, elementary stuff. And very clearly our education has failed to equip this young man with the very basics. We cannot have intelligent conversations or solve any tangible problems if this is the level of our discourse. Sturgeon's hypocritical go-to phrase of "I expect a certain level of intelligence" certainly applies in this instance. And here is another example I've seen from Australia. I can't remember what I've put in this article, but we'll watch it. I can't remember, folks. It's only a minute.
I think it was to do with amending the Anti-Discrimination Act.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really important point, the Discrimination Act, because I would say what my ultimate issue is with this law is that it's asking all Queensland residents to potentially ignore what they see with their own eyes, to ignore reality. Is that going to become illegal? I mean, I can correctly sex every single person sitting in this room right now. It's an instinctive evolution.
This is the thing, right? If you're sitting in a room with 1,000 people, I bet you could correctly sex everyone with 100% certainty. 100%.
Evolutionary, important biological skill. So is that going to be illegal? What's the punishment if we say this person standing in front of me is male, not a woman? This hasn't been covered in any way, not even a substantial way. We're constantly being asked to provide evidence of harm and what could possibly go wrong. There's been no evidence given that men are women. Didn't even start. I mean, the conversation is over there. It's just absurd that it's even gotten to this stage.
Exactly.
If you want to have a gender recognition certificate, fine, it's your life, it's your identity, you're welcome to, but there needs to be exemptions in this law that say gender does not exceed the rights of sex, because it is just obliterating reality for every single Queensland resident.
Fantastic speech. Obliterating reality. Absolutely love this sentiment from the clip above. This is precisely what this poison gender theory does. It's this obliteration of reality that these 86 MSPs have wittingly or unwittingly pressed the button on. And here's the trap, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the trap. And this is a fantastic image of, there's so many Fast and the Furious movies, but this is the one that made after the main actor died. Fade to the music. Tell me in the comments what the music was. It's been a long time without you, my friend. That one. So this trap, this is a fork in the road when it comes to the gender theory stuff. The fork in the road that is created by this gender recognition thing. And it's reality and fiction. Fiction on one road and reality on the other. Look at this image. Imagine Scotland and its general population are in the white car on the left. Where's my scroll? Oh no. Oh no. There we go. Imagine Scotland and its general population is the white car on the left. And in the blue car on the right are 86 MSPs that voted for the GRR bill. This fork in the road is where reality splits off into fiction. By voting for the GRR bill, they've chosen to exit right into fiction. Moreover, in essence, these MSPs have inexplicably taken it upon themselves to split off from the general Scottish public's sentiment on the matter. And this is right to this day. This is exactly true to this day. Normal, everyday working Scots are appalled and sickened to the core by this bill. These 86 MSPs have decided to use their own hands to shape Scotland's future in face of public outcry, in face of numerous high-profile protests, pulling at the wheel and steering Scotland in a direction we as a people don't want to go. I wrote this 2 years ago, honestly. Fantastic. In order for these MSPs to rejoin the rest of us, the Scottish population, in reality, they'll all collectively have to turn round the car or individually ditch out one by one and make their way back to the fork in the road. It conjures the image of Batman trying to escape Bane's prison, and I wish those MSPs looking up at the light, longing for escape, good luck in their quest. For those that don't want to escape, I hope you find solace in the space between real and fake, non-fiction and fiction, fact and feeling. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was 2 years ago. And these 86 MSPs currently at the bottom of this hole. Well, stop sharing this one. We'll remove that. There's my face. But you've got 86 MSPs at the bottom of this hole. And Labour are now trying to climb out. You know, credit where credit's due. It takes a certain level of bravery to try and escape this trap. It really does. So credit where credit's due. Labour are actually trying to start the climb. They're trying to make it back to the fork in the road. And they're trying to come back to where the public is. But the light's there. And of course, we've got the people who are just happy at the bottom of this trap. We've got the Greens and the SNP. And, you know, the Greens and the SNP are sort of acting like crabs in a bucket. Crabs in a bucket. They're acting like crabs in a bucket. And they're actually pulling at the other crabs as they're trying to escape. They're saying, no, you're no getting out. No, you can't climb out of here. You're stuck here with us. That's what's happening here with the refusal to talk about it. The refusal to even acknowledge this is a bloody well issue. That's what's happening. So I hope you liked the article that I wrote 2 years ago. If you want to find it, you can find it on just write in Niall Fraser Substack and you'll find it somewhere amongst the articles. But I've written a decent amount of articles. I even forgot about that. I'd done that. But it was this image here that was conjured in my brain. Because when I seen that Labour were trying to escape, they were backtracking. I was like, oh, did I not predict that a few years ago? Absolutely, I did. So Labour are making the necessary U-turn. You might see the Lib Dems make the necessary U-turn in time. You might even see the SNP make the necessary U-turn. I mean, everyone will eventually have to make this journey out of the trap. And a lot of them are just be doomed. Because when you look up at the reality of it, It's political suicide. It would have been political suicide at the time. But, you know, out comes one story, in comes another. So that was the inescapable trap, ladies and gentlemen. We've seen that, you know, Labour are trying to make it. They're trying to make it out. Will other parties try to make it out? Will the SNP make the U-turn? God forbid, will the Greens make the U-turn? Because, I mean, this trans ideology, it doesn't even help so-called trans people. This is the thing. It's like full kindness, full compassion. Because it's not compassionate when you lie to someone. It's not compassionate and kind when you're furthering someone's delusion, is it? Absolutely not. So, Jim Spence has been rather on it recently when we talk about you know, the major issues that are facing Scotland. He seems to be very balanced, is the word. You know, there isn't a lot of interplay between sort of independence divide, the unionist divide, the sort of Catholic Protestant divide. There isn't a lot of interplay, but the man in the middle of the space seems to be Jim Spence at the moment. Jim Spence seems to be putting out great stuff in almost every issue. I mean, his brain seems to be active, for one. What is the point of Holyrood if it blocks the debate on the NHS trans tribunal? What is the point, Jim? With almost everyone in the country talking about the case, Scottish Parliament is refusing to allow from some MSPs to discuss the issue. So he wrote this today at 6, or it was published today, 6 in the morning. So he works quick, Jim. Well, he is a seasoned journalist. I think he's been a journalist since his early days. Is our Scottish Parliament at Holyrood fit for purpose, or is it time to reconsider whether it's a hugely expensive mistake and scrap it? You know, to think that this is even being postulated, you know, it is. I mean, most people have this notion, especially on the unionist side. We're like, just turn Holyrood into the world's biggest public toilet and save ourselves a lot of money. I mean, you can be absolutely sort of behind that. But at the same time, I think that the building's there. It can do good. It's just the people inside it are just running it like this. It's the people inside it are creating the circus. Does it really represent the interests of the Scottish people, or is it simply a gravy train for increasingly unaccountable and out-of-touch politicians on big salaries with guaranteed pension pots? With almost everyone in the country talking about the case of nurse Sandie Peggie, where employment tribunal hearing against NHS Fife, the Scottish Parliament is refusing to allow questions from some MSPs to discuss the issue. Despite attempts by Niall Fraser and others to raise the issue, the presiding officer, Alistair Johnson, has refused to allow their questions into the chamber. On Tuesday, Conservative-led vote to have issue discussed in Parliament was defeated 64 to 47. Few matters galvanise an entire nation but the case of long-serving nurse who claims she was unlawfully harassed being made to share a changing room with trans doctor Beth Upton is the talk of the steamy, as my old mum would have called it. Beautiful. Irrespective of differing views on the case, the Scottish people voted originally for a parliament which would reflect their supposed openness and democratic nature as a people. Yet here we are with a case which has exercised the minds and voices of folk everywhere, and we're refusing to discuss it in our national parliament. A national hush has been decreed in the place which supposedly exists to debate and discuss matters of great importance. Wished for Scotland was the cry Uber nationalists invoked to crush any dispiriting or negative stories, lest they imperil the chances of fair Caledonia winning independence from Westminster. Ooh, well said, Jim. Wished for Scotland was the cry Uber nationalists invoked to crush any dispiriting or negative stories, lest they imperil the chances of fair Caledonia winning independence from Westminster. You know, at all costs, Jim. At all costs. That grim anti-democratic mentality appears to still be alive and kicking in the very place which is supposed to renew and revive Scottish self-confidence. Our inability to face and confront harsh truths and opposing views lessen the value of Horrid, absolutely. Where increasingly we're being represented by second-rate, second division and second-class intellectuals chosen for party subservience over independent mind. Exactly. Especially when it comes to the SNP. Especially when it comes to the SNP. It's all about how well you can kiss ass, how well you can lick the boot, how well you can shut your filthy mouth. That's what it's about with the SNP. Chosen for party subservience over independence of mind. They don't want independence. They don't. I mean, let's just look at the case of what's his name, Fergus Ewing. And Fergus Ewing, you know, however long the SNP have been in power, they've been promising to duel the A9. What's duel the A9? And I think, to be fair, dueling, not even dueling the A9, right, but making the Highlands in Scotland more accessible is a must, right? It's a must. We can't have, you know, we can't have this cluster around the central belt all the time. We need to expand. We need to make it easier for people to go to these places. We need to make it easier for tourists that are arriving at Edinburgh Airport to travel to the Highlands. You know, we make it easier to get there, to spend money quicker. It's just so annoying. But Fergus Ewing gets treated like absolute shit because he can think for himself. I recall the now clearly pompous phrase bandied about in the early days of Horrid when we were flushed with the possibilities of what we might be once we were running our own affairs. Work as if you live in the early days of a better nation. The great and the good pontificated like a quasi-religious mantra. As it turned out, we're not a better nation. We're no more moral or decent or honourable and no less sleazy than any other nation with its fair share of self-serving, career-advancing charlatans. This is excoriating stuff. Brilliant, Jim. The number of good men and women in Holyrood, and there are honourable exceptions among the herd. Absolutely, this is the thing. There are people there that seem to be there for fighting for the common good, are fighting a losing battle against those who've put institutional self-interest at the heart of the place. The primary function of the Parliament appears increasingly to be the self-survival and the pursuit of individual MSPs' hobby horses, as witnessed by the madness of the gender wars which has captured an entire generation of politicians. We're arrived at the totally undemocratic situation in Parliament where matters which truly impact the Scottish people, such as whether a woman has the right to get dressed for work in a changing room along with other biological women and not men who claim to be women, can't be discussed. Those who dominate the Parliament are fond of vacuously proclaiming anything emanating from Scotland as world class. On this occasion, they can accurately claim that the refusal to debate an issue of national importance to the men and women of Scotland, of the country, is truly a world class embarrassment. And that's the word we want to focus on here. Embarrassment. So one, Jim Spence, fantastic article, well written, well said. But this is the key word in the whole thing for me, is embarrassment. And this is what I said on the Monday night show. It's so embarrassing having to go through this. It's so embarrassing for the First Minister. It's embarrassing for Scotland. It's embarrassing on a global scale. And I think we've got the video of Trump. If I've got it, we'll play it. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, God forbid. Oh, we've got it. We've got it. We've got it. I found it. But see, see the embarrassment that we've got, that we face all the time as Scots, having to put up with this fucking shit. Over in America, they've got an actual leader, and we'll be talking about him in the next segment, but just look at the sheer amount of joy in this room. Look at the sheer amount of joy in this room as Trump signs an executive order banning men from entering women's sports. You know, we would have the same amount of joy here in Scotland when we banned men from going into the women's changing rooms, into the women's toilets. We would have the same level of joy. But here's the level. Here's the video of Trump, and this is the sort of I'll say before I put the video on that this is the genius of Trump. Know that he's, I mean, obviously it's a very common sense, practical thing that he's put in place, but just the optics of this. The optics of this is the genius of Trump. And you'll see that he puts himself right, and he's the smallest in the frame, surrounded by wee girls, and he makes himself the smallest. And Trump's a big guy, but he makes himself the smallest. And you know, this is what I think is the genius of Trump. But we'll watch the video and then we'll move on to this next segment.
And, you know, I'm not allowed to say this politically. It could end my career. They're really beautiful people. These are beautiful people. But you know, like everything else, it's a little bit different today. You're not allowed to say that because if you call a woman or a girl beautiful, that's the end of your career. But let's take a chance on it, Mike. Let's take a chance. So I want to thank everybody for being here. It's fantastic. And this is sort of a big, big day. It shouldn't have even been necessary to take place. This started a long time ago, and we ended it today. And I'm going to sign the executive order right now, and everything I said will go into effect immediately, okay? Thank you.
Down front.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you. You know, if you'd like to gather around me, I think I'm going to be okay. Come on. Come on. Secret Service is worried about them. If we have to worry about them, we have big problems. Okay, do you want to do this? Watch what I do, and then I'm going to give you some pens, okay? You ready? What a nice picture this is, huh, Governor? You ready? We'll do a good job. Wait, let me press that. I want to make this a really good signature, because this is, you know, this is a big one, right? Oh, I think we have a 10. We have a 10.
God bless you, Mr. President.
Pretty good, huh? I see that. Okay? Good. Now you're going to go out and win those events, right? Nice to see you all. Nice to see you. Great going, everybody.
It's just genius, isn't it? We'll remove this for the time being, but it's just genius. And we in Scotland would have that same level of joy if someone, if John Swinney, even he could have that level of adoration if he was to make it out of this hole. Even John Swinney would have the same level of adoration. If you know, and it would be universal. If he says, no, we're coming out the hole, we're finished with the gender bollocks, and no men will be entering women's bloody changing rooms. It's daft. He too would have the same level of adoration that Trump would. But that's, I mean, Sandie Peggie, this story will dominate the news for the next few weeks, months. And you'll see again, I stressed it on the other day, but the other show on Monday, we'll see the Scots Tories probably, they'll be leading the charge on it. They'll be leading the charge because they've got the most to gain. If Labour had a sort of a common sense mode that they could enter, they too would start. They'd be backpedaling like mad. They would be en masse as a collective. They'd be saying, "Whoa, we didn't think this was going to happen. We were under sort of an illusion or a spell. We just thought it was better for these people, but actually, it's not better for anyone." Scots Labour could actually gain a lot for this, but I think the damage has been done. They're trying to crawl out the cave. I don't think it's going to be possible. But the only ones that are not in the cave, the only ones that are on the circle looking down on those perishing and trying to climb out are the Scots Tories. And I will include this time, Ash Regan's on the outside of this. Ash Regan isn't in the cave. She's looking down on the sorry 86 MSPs that are in there. So, I mean, the Scots Tories can just rain down upon them and laugh at them while they're trying to get out. And there's this gap in time when the Labour are trying to climb out. And on the time it takes them to climb out entirely, the Scots Tories can just lay into them over and over and over again. Ash Regan can make hay while the sun is shining outside, while they're trying to climb out. This is the time for them to get political capital under them. This is the time to regain some of the lost ground. The Scottish Tories are losing ground, mostly, I think, to reform, but they're losing ground left, right and centre. And it's getting to the point where the Scots Tories can't really bank on their strongholds in the northeast anymore, in the south of Scotland. They can't really bank on it anymore. So they need to be sort of geared into just full-on attack mode on this. They've got ground to recover. But, see, if I was advising the Scots Tories, they would never be in such a bad position. They've got this crackpot Bateman advising them. The Scots Tories, see, if I was advising the Scottish Tories back then, they would never be in such a bad position. They would never be in such a bad position. Even with Rishi Sunak, even with Boris Johnson. People would be clamouring over themselves to vote Scots Tories up here. The Common Sense Party. But the first thing they need today, the first thing that I would have demanded as their advisor, would be to publicly pillar Sandie Peggie, Jamie Green and Jackson Carlaw. The three musketeers, the three rainbow musketeers who voted for this trans nonsense, breaking ranks in the Scots Tories. I mean, the Scots Tories didn't have a whip on it. I mean, they had a free vote, but at least the majority of them had common sense not to vote it. But there was these three standout exceptions: Jamie Green, Sandie Peggie. Sandie Peggie's an interesting example as well, because he as well is a doctor. Sandie Peggie's a doctor. He should know about medical science. He should know about biological sex. But he doesn't, apparently. But he doesn't. Maybe he's ideologically captured. But Jamie Green, we sort of expected Jamie Green to do it. Of course, he's been flying the trans flag. He's been flying the rainbow pride flag for all these years. So we're expecting Jamie Green. He's totally captured. So the one thing that they could do is just force these people into a groveling apology, or just sack them straight up, make them resign. We've almost got 1,000 viewers again, folks. We are crushing the numbers, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely crushing the numbers the last couple of shows. Fantastic viewing figures. And this is live. We've got 974 geniuses tuning in right this very moment. Incredible stuff. If you could jump onto YouTube and start subscribing there, that would make you an ultra genius. But we are moving topic. We're moving topic. We're moving topic. You know, it's giving me a headache talking about Sandie Peggie stuff because it's making me so angry. But we have, and we'll take that presentation away for the minute, but we have this incredible statement by Trump. We'll get this bannered in so we can see it in its totality. And this statement, you might think, oh, it's bombastic. Oh, it's all this and all that. He shouldn't be saying this. And almost in lockstep, the entire British media is saying, condemning Trump for this shit. When actually, it's just telling the truth is what it is. What he believes the truth to be. But when you think about it in the wider context, right? And we've got this article, you know, the stages that have led up to this conflict in the first place. It's been the continual expansion of NATO towards Russia. Inch by inch, they've been moving towards Russia. And NATO is an alliance created to combat Russia itself. And we've got, think of it, a modestly successful comedian, Volodymyr Zelensky, talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won. And let's just stop there, right? We'll stop there, we'll pause, and we're going to dissect this. We're going to dissect this bit by bit, right? What's he talking about? Can he win the war? Here we have the population of the Ukraine. 37 million. Sharp decline since the war. 37 million population in Ukraine. What's the population of Russia? 143.8 million people. Just by numbers alone, they cannot win this war. 37 million versus 143 million. It's impossible for Ukraine to win this war without backing, without other countries help it, without the whole European sort of military industrial complex falling in behind them. It's impossible. And of course, Russia as well. They're not alone. They've got the backing of North Korea. They've got the backing of China. So this conflict always had the sort of potential to lead to a world war. You know, if Britain sends troops into Russia, if America sent troops into Russia, and then if China sent troops into Russia, North Korean troops are already in Russia, I believe. Then we've got a wider global conflict. But as you've seen, I mean, Trump's been in since January. He's been in about a month now. And we're starting to see these wars end. We're starting to see the peace talks begin. And Trump is the peacemaker. He was the peacemaker the last time. You know, we had it on our second dawn of Trump when Trump walked across the DMZ and between the two Koreas, the demilitarized zone. He walked across it, strode across, and shook hands with Kim Jong-un. And then Kim Jong-un walked across it himself into South Korea. He's a peacemaker through and through. But what's he talking about, Volodymyr Zelensky? As a comedian? Well, I've got a video.
That's that T-C.
This guy became the president of the Ukraine. As he says, as he shuffles his notes. This guy became the president of the Ukraine. Just if you're wondering what Trump meant by comedian. Modestly successful comedian. I mean, he's got like such a horrendous like put-downs. No, not horrendous, but you know, it's a very slanted put-down. And this is the thing, it's all about money, ladies and gentlemen. This war, like every war, it's all about money. $350 billion into a war that couldn't be won. We've talked about how it can't be won because the population of Russia, it's just too large. It's too insurmountable for the Ukraine. It really is. And how many people have died in this attempt, honestly? And we'll go into videos of the Ukraine military forces just picking people up for the streets. Just kidnapping people and then forcing them into the front line. There was a really horrible thing that I seen on 4chan a few weeks ago. And it was the internet search of either, I can't mind if it was a Russian soldier or a Ukrainian soldier, but just for the sake of argument, we'll say that it was a Ukrainian soldier. Oh, I might even try to find it actually. Because I thought it was really quite harrowing. Here we go, we've got it. Right. We'll bookmark that for posterity because I think it's rather important. Take that down. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this big. Can you see that, ladies and gentlemen? Let's get my wee face at it so you can see even bigger. This is the Google searches that were found on a phone of a Ukrainian soldier who died in the World War, in the war, right? And I just thought it was heartbreaking. I just thought it was heartbreaking. And it's, you know, it's obviously the search is in Ukrainian, but it's been translated. Ukraine-Russia negotiations, Zelensky negotiations, Pokrovsky importance. The war will end in 2025. The war will end in the summer. Trump talks when. Trump stop war. Trump on negotiations. Trump aid to Ukraine. Trump, when will the war end? Putin talks. When will this war end? Do you know, like, that's heartbreaking, ladies and gentlemen? Honestly, it's disgusting. I know, see the comments on the right hand side. Desperately sad. This is a man that died in the conflict. This was they recovered his phone. And this is what he's searching. When will it end, basically? Trump negotiations, Trump, you know. It's just horrible. And I fear that this man's just been a few months too late. You know, I mean, I've not got any of the war clips, but I could have just had a full show on the clips that I've seen of, you know, these drones that just drop grenades on people from a mile high in the sky. And they're just people's limbs getting blown off. People's faces, arms, legs, just getting obliterated from these faceless drone operators. It's not the way I would like. I mean, nobody would like warfare to be conducted, but it's just horrendous. There's a certain like a personal aspect to these drone videos in Ukraine as well. You're seeing people's faces. It's really horrible. There's no other way to describe it. $1 billion for every US citizen. Fucking hell. Fucking hell. But just this image alone just sort of sums it up for me. He hopes that Trump was going to stop it. What's Glenn Jackson saying? I think it is very sad to see, though would argue that he'd be hard pressed to find any point in time in history when a soldier wouldn't be asking these questions. Fair point, Glenn. It's just different. It's different, you know. It's different seeing it. But we'll bring this down for the moment. We'll bring up the image again. And what's Trump saying exactly? You know, talk to US of America, and it's spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won. That never had to start. That never had to start, he's saying. But a war that he, without the US and Trump, will never be able to settle. The United States spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed, while the US gets nothing back. Why didn't Sleepy Joe Biden demand equalization, and that this war is far more important to Europe than it is for us? I mean, that much is true. We have a big, beautiful ocean as a separation. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half of the money we sent is missing. It's just absolutely crazy, and he refuses to have elections. And you know, I was watching the news before I'd done the show at the program. I think it was on ITV, and they're expressing this sentiment that Zelensky, that he can't hold elections, which is a lot of shit. You know, what was his approval rating? Zelensky's approval rating 4%, and he's refusing to have elections. Let that sink in. We have a big, beautiful ocean of separation. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half the money we sent is missing. Where is it missing? We've got all these stories of Ukrainians going and buying everything. They're all on holidays. They're rocking about in huge Bentleys and Rolls Royces, buying up real estate, buying casinos. This is happening, ladies and gentlemen. How can half the money be missing? He refuses to have elections, is very low in Ukrainian polls, and the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast, or he's not going to have a country left. In the meantime, we are successful in negotiating an end to the war with Russia, something I all admit only Trump and the Trump administration can do. The thing is, I think that's very true. You know why it can only be Trump? It's because only Trump can be trusted on this. I mean, you might laugh, only Trump can be trusted, but on the geopolitical stage, he's respected and he's trusted. And what he says is then done. Only Trump and the Trump administration can do. Biden never tried. Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train going. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. Get that banner out of the way. His country is shattered, and millions have unnecessarily died, and so it continues. And of course, European media, British media are all over this, saying that Trump is just lying here. Well, let's zoom in on the money for one. Let's find out where half this money is. Let's find out about these suddenly rich, suddenly extremely rich Ukrainians who are going about buying up real estate in London and LA and all these fancy places. But it's true, millions have unnecessarily died. So let's bring this down for a second, because we've got some videos, some bookmarks, some more bookmarks to look at. Once again, we have eclipsed the 1,000 viewers live mark. We're at 1,050 viewers. Thank you ever so much for tuning in on the Wednesday night. We've got one more segment after this. We'll probably have finished up before 11 o'clock, make it a wee 2-hour sesh. But where's my bookmark? Where are they? Where are they? Here we go. Pause this. Bring this up. This is what you get in the Ukraine. This is what you get. Just people outside minding their own business. Then you get the soldiers coming up and everybody's like, oh, better go back in the house. They're trying to kidnap people and put them on the front line, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if the date stamp up the top says 7/12, but I don't know what sort of format they use, if that's December or July. Who we've got inside? Jesus. It's just scary. And then we've got this. This one's titled Zelensky commissars kidnapping the son from his mother. Hundreds of men stolen daily in the Ukraine. This is the reality here. It's just frightening, isn't it? That they can just go about the streets. How would you like it if people were patrolling the streets in Scotland and in Britain and just kidnapping people and then send them to the front line? Because that's what's happening. No wonder his approval rating's right in the fucking bin. It's just horrible. They're just picking them up, look. It's happening all over the Ukraine. And then off to the front line, son. Off to the front line where somebody will use a drone and drop a bomb on your head. Got another video here.
люди, які залучені до цієї роботи, насправді такі самі мобілізовані і кілька місяців тому або кілька днів тому прийшли на службу. Вони ще недостатньо були навчені поведінки, особливостям цієї роботи. І, зокрема, командувач суворо засудив саму організацію цієї роботи, за що керівники обласного центру комплектування, районних центрів комплектування, які до цього дотичні, були притягнуті до дисциплінарної відповідальності.
Ну, на самом деле говорить в одиночных случаях, если только у меня в производстве находится порядка 20 дел по обращению по незаконным действиям военкомата, я бы не стал бы. То есть судов достаточно большое количество с военкоматами в Украине.
Якщо якась інформація буде, будемо.
Предъявляют документы они, просят предъявить в ответ. Если предъявляют ответ, ну все происходит тихо, спокойно, там они отходят, общаются, и мужчина дальше уходит по своим делам.
Сказали, що можуть визвати в будь-який час. Виписали мені це, що я можу спокійно собі ходити. Якщо щось, це показують документи і все, що я був там.
So there you have it. Remove that. Getting pretty tired, ladies and gentlemen. It's not even 11 o'clock yet. But this is the Trump versus Zelensky thing. Trump puts out a bombastic statement that we'll see backed up over the next few weeks. The initial response for the public, the British media, for the European media, is just the utter condemnation. But Trump, given the fullness of time, I believe will be absolutely exonerated in what he said here. So we'll see this play out over the next few weeks. I just thought it was very, very important to talk about this and to talk about why Zelensky isn't having elections. I mean, the whole point, right, is if Zelensky was to have an election, he'd be out. And Zelensky, you would never get a clip of Zelensky talking without him sniffing, because he's clearly a cocaine addict. Clearly. Maybe that's where half the money went. Anyway, we're going to move on to our last segment of today, which is 74-year-old woman arrested here in Scotland, here in Glasgow. 1,100 people watching, ladies and gentlemen. Fantastic. Stay with us. We've got this last segment, and then we'll do a recap. And of course, watch it afterward, because our segment on Sandie Peggie is evergreen. But this video is really bad, right? So the Scottish Family Party, Richard Lucas filmed this. Let's bring this up. So this is today, right? If you don't know, here in Scotland, and JD Vance just talked about this a week ago, not even a week ago, a few days ago. He said, Angie made a mistake, right? He made a mistake and says that people could be jailed for praying in their own homes. Well, that's not the case entirely. It's not entirely true, is it? And of course, National, they run the JD Vance. Fact-checked. He's been fact-checked. And it's come back with a red light on it. It's incorrect. But what he's referring to and what has happened is that he said that praying has been, it's been criminalized. And see, this is a 74-year-old woman here, right? And what's going to happen is she's across the road from an abortion clinic. Now, from my time working at the Scottish Family Party, not working at it, I mean, I've never paid for anything, working alongside, I would say. My time with the Scottish Family Party sort of opened my eyes to, I was never overly religious. I see myself as a Christian, but at the same time, I've never overly, I'm not a religious zealot, put it that way. But there are women, and now that I've had a child as well, to think that after 20 odd weeks or whatever, that they can just go in and just, and I'm sorry if I'm going to upset anyone here, but they can just tear apart a child in the womb with surgical snips as the wee boy or girl's thrashing around in pain. It's horrible to think about. And this is what these people are protesting against, which is their right. It's their right. But this legislation brought in by the Greens, Gillian Mackay, is really Orwellian. And the thing is, see with this protest, right? You might think this is just it's no nice on the people going in and getting abortion. It's no nice on the people going in and getting abortion. It's no nice. But what if I told you that sometimes the people that are going in for abortions, they see these people, they see that there's support for maybe single mothers, that they want to have the child, and they end up having the child. Then would you see the importance of such a protest? No? If there's 20 women going in to get an abortion on a day, and one of them walks across the road, sees these people, and says, actually, I'm going to have my child, that's a win, isn't it? How is that not a win? How is that not a victory? So we'll play the video.
Standing outside the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Glasgow this afternoon. Let's see what happens next.
So you are aware of the legislation that this is a restricted area for protests. So you're within this restricted area. You're aware of that? Right. Those, at this moment in time, the time is 1,500 hours. I'm going to charge you. I'm going to charge you, but before I do so, I'm causing you. You're not obliged to say anything. Anything you do say will be noted down and maybe used in evidence. The offence is, now in this day and date, you involve yourself in a protest, which within a restricted zone that's likely to cause distress or harm to others. Contrary to Section 4 of the Abortion Services Scotland Safe Zones Act, Scotland Act 2024. Do you understand that charge? Do you wish to make any reply to that charge? Yeah, that's fine. What will happen just now is I'm not going to take you back to the station. You will be reported from the street. I will ask you to leave this area now. If you refuse to do so, you will be arrested for refusing to desist, and you will be taken to the station. So I'm going to kindly ask you to move on from here. Now up to yourself where you want to do it. That's fine. I'm going to speak to my gaffer.
Just for this is just incredible bravery by this old woman here, 74-year-old. This is so sad. We'll play it out. She knows the consequences. She knows she's getting arrested. She's been intimidated by the police, and she's going to make a stand. She's going to make a stand.
You have been charged with offence.
We'll go back a bit.
Now up to yourself.
Go back.
Refusing to discuss, you will be taken to a station. So I'm going to kindly ask you to move on from here. Now up to yourself where you want to do it. That's fine. We're going to speak with my gaffer. You have been charged with offence. I'm actually nicely. You will be reported for the offence. That's the day we will take that to the station. Okay?
See, the thing is, right? You can see it in the policeman's eyes, right? I'll bring the video up. See if I'll go back a wee bit.
Okay. You will be reported for the offence. That's the day we will take that to the station.
You can see it in his eyes, right? He does know what this police officer right here does not want to be doing this. He does not want to be fucking doing this. That could be his mum. That could be his gran. She's just causing harm to no one. And yet he really, really doesn't want to do this, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
So you're refusing to move?
Refusing to move.
Okay.
So we'll be on back to the station.
Is that extra okay?
Okay.
Can you put your sign down for me? Thank you. You can take it with us, but I need to write.
I'm not going to put cuffs on you. So, right, we'll just put it on the front, okay? Just so it's... Can you step it? Please step back.
I can understand you're embarrassed.
No, I've got absolutely no issues with you filming, but please take a step back.
Just take a step back from us, that's all. Perfect. See your colleague standing. Quite happy standing there. Okay, thank you.
Of course, for years we've been fed the narrative of intimidation, harassment, molestation, people preventing people from accessing so-called healthcare. But what we see here is the simple reality of this law in action, preventing exactly what it's supposed to prevent. Now, the target of this law is influence. So this is why the law is so evil. It's trying to prevent influence. So they're just trying to prevent people who are trying to save lives. People who are trying to save the lives of the unborn. That's what the law is intended to stop. And this law, this buffer zone law, only one member of the Scottish Parliament voted against it. That was John Mason. So Kate Forbes, for example, you voted for this persecution of your fellow Christians, but it's never too late. I mean, you could apologize. You could say that you wish you'd never done that, and I think that would be a really positive step if you were able to do that. Now, some people at the moment seem to think the Reform Party is the answer to all our problems. Where's the Reform Party? Buffer zones on pro-life issues in general? Well, the answer generally is nowhere to be seen. So, Mr. President...
Oh, see, I'll pause that right there, right? I'll pause that right there. If Reform are to pick me as a candidate, I will go and seek to repeal this act. Because I am of independent mind. And I don't like this. I think it's heinous. An old woman terrified by the police, handcuffed. I feel you can tell from this that the copper didn't want to be there any more than you want to watch this. Exactly. You can tell these people don't want to be doing it. They're enforcing laws they do not want to enforce.
President, Mr. Vice President J.D. Vance, you were talking about this law a few days ago, and here it is manifest in action. And it is absolutely appalling, as I'm sure you will agree. Now, it's pretty sobering watching that, isn't it? I find it quite sobering being there filming this afternoon. And I would urge you to be able to watch this video again. Watch Rose being handcuffed and led away by the police again. And then surely the question I would like to ask everyone is, can you really still believe that the way forward is to vote for parties that will implement this sort of evil, and then somehow or other, by some strange mysterious process, they're going to get elected and good is going to come from it? Really, really. The time for this delusion is over. It's time to vote for what you believe in, stand up for what you believe in, and a good first step for that would very well be to join the Scottish Family Party. We'd very much appreciate your support. So do join us via the link below.
I'm not going to say don't vote for the Scottish Family Party. I'm not going to say that. Why would I say that? I mean, let's just watch this again. As I said, it's very. This is incredibly sobering to see this woman get led away in handcuffs. It really is. I feel sick to my stomach watching this.
It's a restricted area for protests. So you're within this restricted area. You're aware of that? Right. Rose, at this moment in time, the time is 1,500 hours. I'm going to charge you. I'm going to charge you, but before I do so, as caution you, you're not obliged to say anything. Anything you do say will be noted down and maybe used in evidence. The offence is, now in this day and date, you did involve yourself in a protest, which within a restricted zone that's likely to cause distress or harm to others. Contrary to Section 4 of the Abortion Services Scotland Safe Zones Act, Scotland Act 2024. Do you understand that, charge? Do you wish to make any reply to that, charge? Right, that's fine. What will happen just now is I'm not going to take you back to the station. You will be reported from the street. I will ask you to leave this area now. If you refuse to do so, you will be arrested for refusing to desist and you will be taken to a station. So I'm going to kindly ask you to move on from here. Now up to yourself where you want to do it. That's fine. I'm going to speak with my gaffer. You have been charged with offence. I'm actually nicely. You will be reported for the offence. The FTD will be taken back to the station. Okay?
So you're refusing to move?
Refusing to move.
Okay.
So we will be going back to the station.
Is that extra okay?
Okay.
Can you place your sign down for me? Thank you. You can take it with us,
Right.
but I need to hurt.
I'm not going to put cuffs on you. Right, we'll just put it on the front, okay? Just so it's... Can you step it? Please step back.
I can understand you're embarrassed.
No, I've got absolutely no issues with you filming, but please take a step back.
Just take a step back.
See what was Richard saying there? I understand you're embarrassed.
Absolutely. Perfect. See your colleagues standing.
Let's see the cuffs go on. And you can just see, I can see, I don't need to be psychic. I don't need to be clairvoyant. I can read people's faces. Like, this man, this policeman on the left does not want to be doing this. Even the wee lady there, she does not want to be doing this either. They don't want to be doing this. SFP seem to be the only ones boldly speaking out against abortion. Are there any others? No, Matthew. No, there aren't. Aye, this is the women say we are after he says, because he is this man, the guy there on the left. He doesn't want to be putting the cuffs on, right? He says, I'm not going to put cuffs on it. What is the need to put handcuffs on an old lady of 74 years old, posing no threat to anyone? It's just sickening. And then she just goes ahead and does it. You know, Matthew, the other thing that the SFP are really good at as well. Well, one, they're really very strong on the abortion issue, which, you know, it's a massive put off for a lot of people. It really is. But this brings it on to perspective. What I told you at the start of this clip. They'll stand outside, and you know they'll get organisations for the US come across. Well, I think it's 40 Days for Life. They'll come across and they'll pray silently across the road for abortion clinics. Silently praying. What's wrong with that? And every now and again, and it's happened everywhere they go, everywhere these people go, they'll be praying silently, and somebody will be walking in for abortion. And they might change their mind, ladies and gentlemen. Is that a bad thing. No, it isn't. It's a win. New life is entering the world. It's not a. This has to be a win. And we're saying, we've got a and this is in the context of a population crisis. Well, the SNP, they'll say, no, we need more immigrants because we're in a population crisis. And by the way, don't pray outside an abortion centre. We want people to have abortions. Sake, man. But I'll watch this clip. This is just horrendous. You can tell, everyone viewing this, 1,200 people watching this right now live. You tell me that this police officer wants to put the cuffs on this old woman. You tell me. I can see that he's looking at this woman thinking, this could be my mum. This could be my wee gran. It's fucking sickening. I'm getting angry here, sorry.
What will happen just now is I'm not going to take you back to the station. You will be reported from the street. I will ask you to leave this area now. If you refuse to do so, you will be arrested for refusing to desist and you will be taken to the station. So I'm going to kindly ask you to move on from here. Now up to yourself where you want to do it.
I'll stay. I'll stand. She's got more bravery than the vast majority of people here in Scotland. Fucking hell. I'll stand. Well done.
That's fine. I'm going to speak with my gaffer. You have been charged with offence.
And, when this was posted earlier on, right, you've got total pieces of shit saying, oh, thank God that bigot's been arrested. You know what I mean? How can anyone view this and say, thank God this woman's been arrested? That's one less bigot off the street, they're saying. What an utter piece of shit if you think like that. This is just despicable in every way, shape and metric. It really is.
I'm actually nice. You will be reported for the offence. Okay?
So are you refusing to move?
Refusing to move.
Okay.
So we will be going back to the station.
Is that extra okay?
Okay.
Can you place your sign down for me? Thank you. You can take it with us, but I need to cuffs.
I'm not going to put cuffs on you. We'll just put it on the.
I shall see this say we are. We are putting the cuffs on.
Front, okay? Just so it's. Can you step it? Please step back.
I can understand you're embarrassed.
No, I've got absolutely no issues with you filming, but please take a step back.
Just take a step back from us, that's all. Perfect. See your colleague standing. Quite happy standing there. Okay, thank you.
Of course, for years we've been fed the narrative of intimidation, harassment, molestation, people preventing people from accessing so-called healthcare. But what we see here is the simple reality of this law in action, preventing exactly what it's supposed to prevent. Now, the target of this law is influence. So this is why the law is so evil. It's trying to prevent influence. They're just trying to prevent people who are trying to save lives. People who are trying to save the lives of the unborn. That's what the law is intended to stop. And this law, this buffer zone law, only one member of the Scottish Parliament voted against it. That was John Mason. So Kate Forbes, for example, you voted for this persecution of your fellow Christians, but it's never too late. I mean, you could apologize. You could say that you wish you'd never done that, and I think that would be a really positive step if you were able to do that. Now, some people at the moment seem to think the Reform Party is the answer to all our problems. Where's the Reform Party? Buffer zones on pro-life issues in general? Well, the answer generally is nowhere to be seen. So, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President J.D. Vance, you were talking about this law a few days ago, And here it is manifest in action. And it is absolutely appalling, as I'm sure you will agree. Now, it's pretty sobering watching that, isn't it? I find it quite sobering being there filming this afternoon. And I would urge you to be able to watch this video again. Watch Rose being handcuffed and led away by the police again. And then
And you see him there, zooming in. So he does the same thing as me, Richard. You know, he sees the irony right there in front of his face. Keeping people safe. Oh, they're keeping people safe, all right. By arresting this old 70-year-old
surely the
woman.
question I would like to ask everyone is, can you really still believe that the way forward is to vote for parties that will implement this sort of evil, and then somehow or other, by some strange mysterious process, they're going to get elected and good is going to come from it? Really, really. The time for this delusion is over. It's time to vote for what you believe in, stand up for what you believe in, and a good first step for that could very well be to join the Scottish Family Party. We'd very much appreciate your support. So do join us via the link below.
See, I was going to cut him off there before he said join the Scottish Family Party, but he deserves to get his message heard. Absolutely. That was horrible to watch. I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but that was really, 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 really horrible to watch. And, you know, I think the word of the day, before we'll do an encapsulation of everything. The word of the day, for me, it seems to be embarrassment. Embarrassment. We've got this gender hoo-woo, wackadoodle nonsense that's in our institutions, that's allowing men claiming to be women that are obviously not to go in to women's changing rooms bold as brass and say, I'm a woman, I deserve to be here, now get changed in front of me. We've got that behaviour not only permitted in Scotland, but actively encouraged. It's embarrassing. It's deeply, deeply embarrassing. It's embarrassing for us as a society as a whole. It's embarrassing for NHS Fife. It's embarrassing for our medical profession. In a place that brought us the Enlightenment, in Scotland, the home of the Enlightenment. And then we've got a 74-year-old woman. We've got a 74-year-old woman. I'll get the frame. Cuffed. A 74-year-old woman cuffed. Really? Again, it's embarrassing. Posing no threat to anyone. She stood silently, holding a sign, praying away. And yet we've sent 1, 2, 3 coppers there to go and arrest an old woman, 74 years of age. And even if you get to the end of the video as well, you see the 3 people getting in the car, 3 coppers in the car. There's 3 across the other side of the road too. But the police not got anything better today? Hold on a minute. Just last week I was in just across the road in Morrison's car park, across for the safe consumption, and I'm seeing people smoking crack cocaine. I'm seeing people shoot heroin into their legs. Oh, but that's all legal and fine. Oh, but that's all legal and fine. What a fucking dump we're running here. What a king. Our politicians have been on the fucking crack pipe. We've got 6 officers here arresting, or 3 officers arresting a 74-year-old woman. We've got 3 across the road. When last week, I'm in the mother of all needle pits, a Morrison's car park, slap bang in the middle of East End, right across the road for the drug consumption room. And you've got people that are crying, oh, the needles are no coming for the consumption room. You've got retards like this saying, no, you have no proof they're coming for the consumption, even though I've had addicts tell me that they've got 20 packets the other day. They didn't want to hear it from me. We've got men busting into women's changing rooms, demanding to see, to get changed next to women. The whole, honestly, our politicians are on drugs. It's so embarrassing to be Scottish. That's what it is. It's like that clip for Train Spotting, where they reach the middle of nowhere and it's shite being Scottish. It's shite being Scottish. It's, honestly, I think that's the word of today's show. Embarrassing. Can you believe it? You've got one end of the spectrum. We're allowing men into women's prisons, women's spaces. Well, we are letting men into women's prisons. Sorry. Of course that's happening too. We're letting men into women's prisons. We're allowing men into women's changing rooms. We're actually going after women who say, oh, I'm uncomfortable with this. We've got a drug consumption room. And then right next door, there's literally hundreds of needles in the car park. And yet then we're sending 3 coppers and 3 additional officers are standing about on the other side of the road, chatting shit, to arrest an old 74-year-old woman for standing silently praying outside it. You know, this is just so embarrassing. For fuck's sake. Right, well, I think that's a good place to end the show. Fucking hell. Honestly, it just gets me so angry. It's so shite being Scottish, but we will change it eventually. This has to be redone. This has to be repealed. Like I'm saying, there'll be people. It is pathetic and it's total. You're absolutely spot on. It's pathetic. Jesus. Oh, fucking hell. Something that needs to change and drastically here, ladies and gentlemen. Something really does need to change. The SNP don't deserve it. The Greens don't deserve it. Labour don't deserve it. The Lib Dems don't deserve it. None of them know how we can correct this. None of them know how to put Scotland back on the rails again. We're off the rails here, ladies and gentlemen. Right, we're arresting a 74-year-old woman at 3 o'clock, he said in the video. It's 3 p.m, it's 1500 hours, and I'm going to arrest you for standing here. 2 Saturdays ago, I'm across for the safe consumption room, and I've got a picture of a guy that was just about to, he was smoking crack cocaine. And it was 2:55 on the timestamp of the picture. No police there. We are upside down here in Scotland. We truly are. It's really, really, like Richard Tallock saying, pathetic, totalitarian, but overall, it's embarrassing. Right, folks. We've broke new record for the show. We're breaking records every week on the Niall Fraser show. We're almost 1,300 viewers, 1287. Almost 1,300 exactly on X. We've got 1,287 viewers. 5 on YouTube. What is this? What is this? If some of you could migrate over to YouTube, I'll put the wee banner up. I'm at the YouTube. Just look up the Niall Fraser Show. Get subscribed. I personally think that the viewing, you know, I can cast things from my phone to my TV quite easily for YouTube, but I can't really do it so easily for Twitter. And there's a problem, like you know, I can't see who's viewing this. I can't see much of the comments that are coming in for Twitter for some reason. I don't know why. But it's been a spirited show. If you feel like the need, you can support me at the coffee, ko-fi.com, Niall Fraser 8. You know, yeah, I'm not expecting anyone to donate, to be honest. Not expecting anyone. But if you can't help monetarily, what you can do is at least give it a like. I've been gone 2 hours, 20 minutes. And I think it's time to call it a day. So that's been the Niall Fraser Show for Wednesday night, and it's been quite a hard one to take, if I'm honest, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, the drug stuff in the last night's show, Monday night show. Going back to that's opposite the safe consumption room week after week. It's actually taken its toll on me. It really has. Just to see like the level of despair, the level of depravity, it's jaw dropping. And now we've got a 74-year-old woman arrested, and you can tell the police doesn't want to be doing it. You can tell. Scotland Scorpion says good night. And well, that's a good place to end it. Good night. We've actually just eclipsed 1,300 viewers. Well done. If you've just come in, you've just missed 2.5 hours of riveting content. But if you've just come in the new, then it's good for you, because you're going to see the best part of the show, which is the intro and outro music. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a fantastic time tonight. We come again on Friday night. So come back on Friday. We'll have more news, more stories to cover. But other than that, there's nothing else for me to say other than good night. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you on Friday.